Welcome back to another video on Gearsaw Studios, and today I'm going to be showing you how to build yourself a giant Santa Claus statue for the third day of Gearsaw, which gives you a nice festive iconic thing to put in your world that's surprisingly simple to make, only requiring a couple stacks of concrete to do. So without further ado, let's investigate how we'd go about this. And we'll be using a very simple palette. We'll be using red concrete for the coat. This can be substituted for whatever you want. Fur and his beard will be made out of white concrete. The skin will be out of white terracotta. Feel free to substitute that. The belt will be made out of brown and yellow concrete. I wouldn't recommend changing the yellow concrete to gold, because the main issue with that is the rest of these things are mainly untextured blocks. So having one textured thing would disrupt the flow of the build. For his boots, we'll be using black concrete. And then, this andesite pillar tells us how tall each area is. The first segment is the legs, the second is the arms and torso, and this is the head. Of course, it'll end up being taller because we'll have to add the Santa hat, but otherwise, we'll have ourselves roughly this height. So, try avoiding building underground. Then, make a 4x8 area like this, and then make it roughly 3 blocks tall. Of course, you can change this to whatever you want. I recommend 3 blocks since it's nice and tall. It takes up a quarter of the leg space, which I'd say is a good number. From here, go to the top of it and add a 2-block thick area for the fur on his coat, since right above the boots, he has a little bit of fur. Since I made the boots a little too tall, I've decreased them down to 2 blocks, but otherwise, we now have Santa's legs once you go all the way up to the 12-block height area here with red concrete. Now, it would make sense to go ahead and add the belt and such, but here's the thing, with only the legs, you don't really have much of a representation of scale. So, fill in the rest of the body with completely red concrete. Since, although it's not going to be completely red concrete, it makes your life a lot simpler. Since, of course, most of the build is already going to be red concrete, which means replacing a few blocks here and there won't be terribly difficult. Then, at the bottom block of the torso, right here, add the arms. And the arms will go all the way up to the top of the torso. And this will be in accordance with the player model, shown here, although mine isn't the best because I added pauldrons. Still, you can see where the leg line is based off of where I move, and then the end of the arms, which means when moving it should look something like this, and then using that reference there, you can figure out where exactly the arms should be. Then copy it to both sides, and then we'll have a very plain Santa thing. Once you have the basic player model shape in place, you can see that it's much easier to add details. Between the legs and the torso, I've added a belt, which is a simple brown concrete line that circles between the 2 layers, cut off by the arms. And then we have a yellow buckle in the middle, and that looks pretty much like gold. For the arms, I added the same thing we have down here, except it's only 5 blocks since it doesn't go here, since you can see how large the cuffs would be from there, and that's not particularly good. And now, we have ourselves a much easier template to build off of. So go to the center 2 blocks of your build, and go up like this by replacing the middle blocks with white concrete. And now, you have yourself a basic little robe here, since it's no longer simply a shirt. For the other changes you might want to make, you might want to replace the hands here. Instead of red gloves, you could replace it with black, although that might get mistaken for hooves, and I don't think many of you are trying to build a piglin Santa. So replace the hands with skin tone if you want, and you can see how that works out. So up to you if you want to do that. And even the belt here makes it look like he has a thumb, which is quite nice. And then fill out the rest of the details you want. I'd look up pictures of Santa himself in order to get some inspiration, and then we'll be able to move on to the head. With all of our details now in place, we have ourselves a pretty basic Santa. Of course, we might be adding a bag soon, but otherwise we have everything that we need here. So what do we do now? We add the head. And this is pretty simple. Go to the center of the torso. I've marked this 2x2 square. And then go 2 blocks out, and on the third one, place white terracotta or your skin tone of choice. Then make yourself roughly a 5x8x8 cube, so 5 blocks tall, 8 blocks wide, and then we'll be able to start making a proper head off this. Of course, you can make it hollow if you want. Who knows, you might even want to make it a house, but otherwise, this is a pretty simple part. We'll be adding the hair and beard in the form of white concrete later on. Here we have ourselves a basic Santa head. The hair isn't done, of course, very basic hat lining for now, but it gets the idea across. You can see it is 5 blocks tall, this being blank, this being the bottom half of the mustache, soon to become the beard with this. And then we have the eyes, empty to give some spacing, and then we have ourselves the edge of the hat. The hat will be done last, and since we have the head in, we can safely get rid of this indicator here if you build that. Then, it's now time to build the beard itself, and this will be made completely out of white concrete. You can add a mouth. I'd recommend a light gray terracotta regardless of skin color for the most part, but it's up to you whether you want that. The only thing it must do is it goes down unless you want to remain absolutely accurate to the player model, and potentially even goes down a little onto his coat like this. Of course, this is pretty rudimentary, but it gets the idea across. So once you have that in, give him some hair like this, unless you want the hat to droop down a little, but I find it easier and more Minecrafty to place it only on this layer. And then make the hair out of white concrete, pretty simple, and then we'll be almost done with this statue. Over here, we have ourselves the completed statue, with the hat included. Before taking a final look, let's discuss how we'd go about doing the hat. Of course, it's going to be 8x8, the same shape as the head right here, and then get yourself a simple 8x8, make it 2 blocks tall, round out the edges right here, and then what you want to do is make progressively smaller squares heading into one direction, whether it be behind or either side. You could do this diagonal, but I'd only recommend it if you're comfortable with building hats already. And then, it should all narrow down into a point here once you get it small enough like this. The smallest you should go is 4 blocks wide. 2 blocks wide, and that would end up too small. So here, we have ourselves the little ball on the end of it. I'm not actually sure what that's called. Which means our Santa Claus statue is done. And that was remarkably easy. All you need to do is get yourself some sand, some gravel, a couple of dyes, and then follow this tutorial, and what do you know? You have a Santa Claus statue. Who knows, you might want to add it to a winter wonderland, add some things, maybe a giant present next to him, or potentially wait 2 days after this is uploaded to see something a little more extravagant than just one present. And then we'll have ourselves a nice festive wonderland, using just a simple statue in a snow biome, along with a couple accompanying structures if you want. And with that, it's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video, remember, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. And either way, enjoy the rest of your day. Stay tuned, since 2 days from now, I'll be uploading another video if you're watching this the day it released. Gearsaw out.